Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today my name is Andy and today we're back with the latest instalment of the Classic Cars in Motorsport series. It is still the month of May, it's still the Indy 500 month, and today we look at the Lotus Type 38, the first ever rear-engined car to win at Indianapolis back in 1965. The car that took Jimmy Clark to his one and only Indy 500 victory in 65, and a car that never seen another track, in my research anyway, other than Indianapolis. Certainly not in the hands of the Lotus team anyway, as far as I can make out. Obviously rear-engined, mid-engine mounted, 500 horsepower coming from the Ford V8 in the back, rear-wheel drive of course. None of your fancy bits that you get these days. It's just 2-speed gearbox, low speed and a high speed, just like the Watson Roadster we seen last week. But look at that suspension, look at the difference there. This car was set up in quite a strange way to be offset with the suspension. You can even see it on the rear there as well, short on the left, long on the right, and that was to help it through the always turning left on the speedway. Not something that really caught on with other cars, but it was suited obviously to oval racing of course with that design, which means today, going round the Nordschleife, I am going to struggle like anything else, but we'll come to that in a minute. But this was seen as being, this is in a way Genesis for rear-engine cars, the first to actually win. They had been competitive with Lotus in previous years. You might remember the story from 63 about the Watson Roadster that Parnelli Jones took to victory. Second place was Jim Clark, who felt he should have won if it hadn't been for an oil leak and the officials decided not to black flag Jones. So this is seen as a bit of retribution for Team Lotus, and finally they were able to get victory, and they dominated the Indy 500 in 1965. Clark qualified with a 4-lap average speed of 160 miles an hour and a new 1-lap record of 160.973. It was beaten, ironically, by AJ Foyt in the older modified Lotus 64. But in the race, Clark led from the start. Foyt passed him on lap 2, and then Clark roared by him on lap 33 and was never seen again, only headed at the lead of the race when he pitted for the first time on lap 65, retook the lead in lap 64 when Foyt came into the pits, and Clark was never seen again in that race, winning by an absolute mile. Only 4 other cars finished on the lead lap. The rest of the finish all at least 2 laps behind. Parnelli Jones was in second as well in another modified 34, and you know, that felt a bit sweet as well for Lotus beating the man who took the victory from them a few years previously. They came back to the Brickyard, obviously Lotus, to try and win again, but they were unsuccessful in doing so. Graham Hill won in a Lola in 1966, and they came back with Clark in 67 before his engine blew, and of course before he could come back and try and take a second victory, he unfortunately lost his life in a Formula 2 accident in 1968. But it had proved that the cars could make it at the Brickyard, having a few years the Americans going similar to what Ferrari did. Nothing can beat power in the front wheels, and it proved that it was possible, just like they did in F1, same as Cooper did as well. So brilliant stuff. And the winning race record at the time was an average speed of 150.686 miles an hour that Clark set on his way to victory, and it was the first time an Indy 500 had been run at a speed of over 150 miles an hour. Classic car in its own right, but I will tell you now, it is an absolute bugger to handle out in the Nordschleife. Want to see how hard it is? Let's head out on the track. So here we go, rolling start this time. I've tried already and failed, so what you're seeing is attempt number 2, to be perfectly honest. And here we go, up towards the line, into turn 1. I actually get it turned in quite nicely this time, actually. A lot better than what I've done before. Down through the valley, and just having to be so careful with the car and turning. This bit's quite tricky here, so just getting on the brakes early, turn it in nice, wait for it to come out the corner. Oh, big moment to oversteer there. And the car just sliding its way through this section. Not going to bother with upshifting, on the brakes nice and early. Get it turned in nice, we're heading towards the Flugplatz now, up to second gear, 500 horsepower through the rear wheels with non-symmetric suspension. This can only end one way surely, but we're over the rise of the Flugplatz. We're actually through that pretty quickly in comparison to some practice runs, so that's good. Building up the speed, we're already beyond the top speed of that Roadster from last week. It's going to come off the throttle here, over that rise, into the left-hander, just dropping down as much as I want to drop it to first. Oh, it's actually got away with it. I was expecting that to really snap on me, but it didn't, so that's pretty decent. Down through the valley, the autumn leaves to the left and the right, and heading up the hill. Just tricky a little bit on the brakes. Where's the curb? There it is. Use it as much as we can. Keep it in second, and now we'll drop to third here, since we're in a straight line. Took 2 bites at that apex. We're coming out to the end of sector 1, and we're going to be up on the Roadster. The Roadster's time through there was a 2-minute 1.7, so that's what we're aiming at for that, and it's a 1:56 through there, so that's good. Well inside the time off the Roadster. You'd expect that in terms of outright speed. This car, oh, we're off the road, into the wall. 19 on the rear suspension. I'll try and keep going, it might not be too bad. This car was, of course, the first car in Indy history to do a lap over 160 miles an hour in terms of a full lap. And obviously, when most people, Lotus have done it in F1, of course, people thinking, oh no, rear engine, that won't work, that won't do anything, will not be good. And Lotus and Cooper obviously started it, but Lotus perfected it in my opinion, and they completely led the way with it. And when Clark won here in '65, there was only a handful of front engine cars still left on the grid. The Americans had seen the way and shied off of their usual front engined big blocks basically, and moved to these cars. But these cars in comparison to have slowed down far too much there. You take it easy out here though, you got a lot of oversteer. But these cars were bigger than the F1 equivalents, but they were dwarfed by the Roadsters. Even the previous models to this as well that they took to Indy first were completely dwarfed by the front engine Roadsters. Before long everybody was driving something like this, and the history of Indy 500 changed, and this was the first car to win Indy. It was a rear engine car. It's going to come off the power through here. Oh, it's so easy to get wrong. It's so hard to turn in to the corners. Caught the grass there, not too good. We're coming up to the left, the right hander before the carousel. I've not slowed down anywhere near enough through that. I'll be glad next week to get back into a modern car, the DW12, which is now the last spec generation of Indy cars. I completely make a mess of the carousel. Something with power and downforce and grip is going to be a pleasant welcome after handling this and the Roadster around last week. It's coming through this tricky section now, a section I do not like at the best of times in this car. Oh goodness me. Keep it in second, just going to roll it through these corners. I'd love to go much quicker, but I don't feel I can without putting in hours and hours worth of practice and fiddling properly with the setup and everything. This thing is, this series is for fun, it's for good laughs, and I'm sure you're getting plenty watching me trying to handle some of these cars as they get a snappy oversteer coming up towards YouTube corner, and another one drifting the way out. I'm just going to hold it here, and rather than go up the gears, I know that's a tricky corner. I'm going to go up to second early because of this bumpy bit, but this car's just so tricky. Down through the right hander. I think I tried this one on Indy's Speedway a while back, and I remember going, holy moly, this is not fun. So whatever made me think it would be fun to take it around here, I do not know. Still up on Sector 2 on the Roadster, but not as much as I would maybe like it to be. Oh, second carousel coming up. The end of the lap is in sight. Not too bad through there. Drop down the speed, but I'm just going to keep it in second and let the engine's torque just bring it back up, so I don't need to worry about getting any tank slappers, and then just try and get it turned in here. Avoid the bumps, get on the power, and now 500 horsepower propelling us along with a bit of rear suspension damage on the right. And you'll see there we're hitting the limiter over 180, upwards to 184. Will we hit 185? Not at the moment. We might coming down the hill, but I'm going to need to get the brakes early. There's no way I'm taking chances through here. I might even need to lift through this bit just a little. So 184 is going to be as fast as we get. I'm going to brake nice and early for this section in this car. And here we go, final couple of corners down to first gear. Gently on the way in, catch on the way out, and then nicely through the final corner. Finish line in sight. What we're going to do, it is a 723.7, so what's that, 13 seconds quicker than the Roadster, but that was not an easy lap in any way, shape or form, but it is still an absolute iconic car in its own right, and beautifully recrafted in this game. I love the dash in this with the red leather, it just looks absolutely beautiful. But that is it for this week. Tell me what your thoughts are on this car. Have you driven the car in the game? Tell me what you think of it. See if you agree with my feelings on it as well, especially if you've driven it anywhere other than an oval. Next week, as I say, we're in the most up-to-date IndyCar content that I've got on Project Cars 2, the DW12 road-going version. So we're going to be back to wings and loads of power and everything else that goes with it. So that's going to be a quick lap. I'll be interested to see just what that can do next week. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well, hit the bell icon, notified of any other videos that I do, whether it be classic content, whether it be from my F1 reviews, next one coming up obviously from Monaco in about a week's time. But yeah, that is it. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Andy, and until next time, see you again soon. Ta-da.